Finance Enterprise Public Safety Committee meeting to order, Tuesday, November 25th, 5:32 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Bell?
Here.
Vice Mayor Burgess?
Here.
Councilwoman Waldman? Here. Councilwoman Lopez?
Here.
Councilman McCormick?
Here. Spread out.
Councilman Nelson and Councilwoman Sierra called.
Thank you so much. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the minutes. The Committee of the Whole minutes, November 12, 2008. Been properly moved.
Second.
And seconded. Any comments or questions on the minutes? All in favor say aye. Aye. And the ayes carry. Thank you. Item B, amendment to lease agreement with Eastern Financial Florida Credit Union, tab 2. Mr. Manager?
Mayor, council members, as you are all aware, we have just here north of the building the Eastern Financial Credit Union. They rented space from us for $3,600 a year. We extended it for 1 more year. However, assuming we move out of the city hall within 1 year, which is we could cancel within 1 month notice, and they will make their payment prorated. I know in the past the discussion came, about the lease amount. How come it's only $3,600? Really, it's a service for city employees and city residents for that space. Eastern Financial bought a property in Campbell Drive, and they're planning in the future to have an independent branch in Campbell Drive. When we move to New City Hall, we're not taking Eastern Financial with us. They tried, but we didn't have space, and we were not going to just give it to one bank, so that's why they decided to go and fund it.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for the manager on item B?
I'll move it.
The item's been properly moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the ayes carry. Thank you. Item C, amendment to the lease agreement with T-Mobile South, tab 3. Mr. Manager?
Council members, I'm going to say a little bit about it, but if you have any more questions, Joanna and Cooper Smith worked it out with our city attorneys. I did work the original agreement, in details, but just more or less the T-Mobile installed an antenna just north of the substation in 162nd. The height of the antenna is 120 feet. They are asking us to allow them to extend it for 12 more feet so they can have more tenants on the antenna. T-Mobile have the agreement. If anybody comes and locate on their antenna, that's really something between them. It's private dealings. Anything on the ground lease, anybody who's going to be locating on the antenna, they need equipment on the ground, they lease the ground from us. And you see one of the tabs with Verizon, they're going to be leasing the ground from us, and they're going to be between them and T-Mobile leasing the space on the antenna. So therefore, we're asking your approval to allow them to extend it by 12 more feet. And we're saying here that, also I want you to be aware that the code allows up to 150 feet antenna height. Normally on private property, you are required to have a breakaway distance between the antenna itself and the nearest property line by the height of the antenna. In this case, we are 12 feet higher than that. Government properties are exempt, and we ask the attorneys to tighten the indemnity clause that as a result of these 12 feet, they will be responsible for any third party practically claims for liability, and they agree to it.
Very good. Any comments or questions for the manager on this item?
I know you said they agree. Do the neighbors have any say-so in it?
In the past, we had a discussion with the neighbors who were to the north, and their representatives were Mike Marcus and Steve Shiver, and I know between Joanna and Mark Cooper Smith, they tried to speak to anybody who would represent that property. Really, nobody came about. And the reason I'm saying this because when we originally had the agreement with T-Mobile, the antenna was located like 10 feet away from the north border line of our property. And Mike Marcus came to us and say, my client's going to build houses there, and if the antennas break, they're going to break on top of houses. We moved it south 120 feet. Now we're adding 12 feet. I'll be very honest with you. Even if it breaks away for the entire length, it's going to fall in the clearance between, or the setback, so it would never hit a house.
Okay. And I just
But we wanted to ask for the indemnity, just in case there is a shed, there is a dog, there is something on the private property, we are indemnity.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for the manager? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes carry. Next item, ground lease agreement with Verizon Wireless, tab 4. I'll move it.
I'll second it.
The item's been properly moved and seconded. Pretty self-explanatory. Any comments from the manager?
Again, this is another it's the same discussion I was talking about earlier. They're going to lease about exactly 454 square feet from us, and it's like a ring around that antenna. And this comes to practically about $63.4 per square foot annually, and it goes up by 4% a year. So I'm asking for your approval to move forward.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from council for the manager? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes carry. Next item, First Amendment to the Agreement for Sale of Phil Shores Development, tab 5. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move it.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Mr. Manager, would you please give us an explanation on the extension of time?
Mayor, council members, we've been in discussion practically since I became a city manager with our attorneys and the attorneys for Shores. We have an agreement with them that will expire actually next month, and they're asking for an extension of until the year 2011. I personally don't really have any problem with it, but we wanted them to acknowledge that there's a consent decree now, and there are requirements in the consent decree, and the permit could practically be terminated. We agreed to the extension of 2011. However, if they finish their fill earlier, it terminates. If we finish earlier, it could stay, but they will be responsible for all the expenses associated with keeping the permit active.
Very good. Any comments or questions for the manager? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes carry. Thank you. Finance Enterprise Committee, Councilwoman Lobos.
Thank you, Mayor Bell. Item A is 2009 Skylift Mini Derrick, which is tab 6.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Thank you. This 2009 Skylift Mini Derrick that the staff is recommending that we purchase was one of the 3 items during the budget presentation that was said was going to be an exemption from no additional fleet vehicles. This was it, and I believe the other one was the police department. But anyway, Mr. Shahada, if you can expand on that. So we're looking to make this to make this purchase as it is under the recommendation that this allows the staff to have access to areas that they didn't have access to before.
Madam Chair, Mayor, council members, that's exactly what we are doing. When we did the budget presentation, we had 3 exemptions, and this is one of the 3 exemptions. And this is really necessary. We consider it mission critical for the electric department, and also I want you to know that we are going to be purchasing it in one payment versus leasing like we did with sometimes fleet in the past. So therefore we kindly ask for your approval to move forward.
And one other thing too, Mr. Shahada, you had said that this was going to be a cash purchase. We weren't going to put it on credit or anything like that?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. What were the other 2 exemptions to the budget?
Madam Chairman and Council, the other ones were 2 items actually from the PTP and a 3rd one from the police department, a flatbed truck. From the PTP, we had a backhoe and a street sweeper.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item is item B. It's a revenue sharing agreement that we're looking to establish with Commerce Bank.
I'll move it.
Second it.
Thank you. And this is something that it's new, and it really was because Ms. Jan Smith pursued it. She saw that it was something that could be beneficial to the city. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Mr. Shahada to introduce it, and then I guess Ms. Jan Smith. And I understand that there's a representative from Commerce Bank here as well to answer any questions that council may have.
Madam Chair, Mayor, council members, what the chairwoman said is exactly correct. I take no credit for this thing Jan is doing. Jan, I am so proud of you. You know, we're looking, actually this item, and you're going to be seeing another item, an ordinance associated with another item where department heads are coming, you know, with things really thinking outside the box. You know, we're making the payments to vendors, you know, by cutting checks and, you know, traditional way. What we will be doing through Commerce Bank, practically paying them on Visa, and whatever fees Commerce Bank will be charging, they will share some with us, and it's and that's not costing us anything at all. And the program is voluntary. Who's going to be participating in it? It's going to generate a revenue between $50,000 to $150,000 annually, and hopefully if it succeeds and more people know about it, it's going to keep just going up. We're going to add to our purchasing bid packages to have it as, you know, encourage vendors to participate in this program. And with this, I turn it over to Jan to say how she learned about it, how she did it, and all that.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Shahana. Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Same thing Mike said, instead of cutting a check for each individual vendor, we'll be paying vendors who choose to participate via a Visa card, so that'll eliminate a lot of our paper transactions, and it'll also increase the efficiency of the department, as well as we'll earn a share of the fees that Commerce Bank will charge the vendors to participate in the program. There's no cost to the city. Most vendors are already accepting Visa card payments, so it's not going to be a big burden on any of our vendors. Like Mike said, also we're going to start incorporating a preference in the bid packages. If they will accept Visa payments, then they'll get a preference at the bid openings and in the choice of vendors that we choose. But we're not going to make it a requirement, because I think we could possibly eliminate some good vendors if we tried to make it a requirement.
The word was encourage.
Yes.
Going to encourage.
Right.
Not require.
Exactly.
But since this is going to be something new, we're going to see for the first year. I think, Ms. Smith, you were estimating, what is the category? And you were very conservative in your estimation. You didn't want to go too high up.
We put together a vendor list and sent it to Commerce Bank. They had estimated that we would issue roughly $12 million worth of Visa payments, but in order to estimate the revenue, since we really don't have any idea, I used the $0 to $5 million number, which was between $50,000 and $100,000 of revenue per year. But it's likely that'll be higher than that.
Okay. And go ahead, Mr. Shahada.
Also, there is going to be benefit to the vendors, because all these things will be like electronic transfer, so it goes into their account. There is a benefit to them. It's really seeing their payment process and get into their accounts fast. And also, I want to add something here. Please allow me. Jan, when she was telling us the story how she knew about this program, she said, was this the lady you met in the conference?
Yes, Christina Pujol.
She met Christina in a conference, and Christina introduced the idea, and she said Christina kept calling and she will not take no for an answer. So thank you, Christina, for not taking no for an answer.
Well, right, and that's how you studied our vendor list, I understand that. So you were able to come prepared at the meeting to share with Ms. Smith what your thoughts were as to how many of our vendors were going to be accepting this electronic transfer of funds. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Mayor Bell.
This is an interesting concept. Is it a fairly new concept? Is it one that we're just now getting on board? And I see that it's kind of like a win-win with no risk and to reap some revenues for the city of Homestead. But how modern is it? How new is it? How many other municipalities are participating in revenue sharing like this? Okay.
Certainly, this is a relatively new concept. I'd say in the past 5 years, growing in usage within municipalities. Commerce Bank, although we're a Midwestern bank, this is something we're doing on a national basis. Once again, we've been doing it for quite some time and have really moved into this direction in dealing in municipalities, healthcare, education, and so once again, this is where it is relatively new, though, and so you are one of the earlier adopters. But within municipalities, cities within our footprint. I'd say we have at least 100 different cities of different sizes using this in an accounts payable fashion.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, could you please state your name?
Oh, yes. My name is Terrence Mack. I'm the National Product Manager. I came out here to help Christina. Sorry, just didn't mean to grab a microphone.
The Vice Mayor was writing over here, and I think he wants to know if he gets Sky Miles. What is the question?
My one question is when we sell to the vendors, or we pay to them with a credit card, and they get the 1.5% that you guys keep, will that be any problem to the vendors, Jan, do you think? Or is that waived, or how?
What happens is there is a fee in accepting Visa payments, and it can vary anywhere from 1.5% to 3%, and that's really what funds these programs. And so we're riding the rails of the Visa network. Although we're not issuing plastics, it's still the same type of income generation. That if I go to Walmart and spend $100 on a credit card, I get $100 worth of goods or services. Walmart in turn gets more like $97, and that 3%, that cost of accepting Visa, that money split three ways. It's split between the issuing bank, the bank who gave you that card, we get a piece of the transaction. The merchant bank, the bank that enabled Walmart to accept Visa and MasterCard, they get a piece of the transaction, and then Visa and MasterCard to facilitate that transaction. So we try and give you the tools of technology to get more spend within the program. Once we're covering our cost of funds, customer care, that's where the revenue shares come from. Similar to points program, any airline points, what have you, that's where that money comes from. It's from the accepting side at which your suppliers negotiate with their bank what that rate is. They do not negotiate with us.
Right, and so Visa and MasterCard, I mean, every transaction, and actually American Express charges their vendors more, and that's why you don't see many vendors accepting American Express.
Exactly.
Mr. Shahada, go ahead.
I also like to add one more thing, that Commerzbank waived all the user fees, so practically this is really a zero risk to us. It's not going to be at cost to the city at all, so it's going to be on the positive one.
And the setup of it actually part finance, part IT. So the software that you're going to be implementing into our system is going to be handled by who in IT?
Actually, it's not a software. This is web-based. So the beautiful part about this is it's not encrypting with your current software. And the IT department has already been working with Terrence, and everything seems to be smooth as of right now. But just to give you guys a little bit of history, because I think it's important for you to understand this, this concept. Basically, what I did is out of, let's say, 100% of your vendors, about 30 to 40% of them already accept Visa as a method of payment. So what we did is we study it and we call certain vendors, see if they would accept Visa as a form of payment, and they said yes. So what happens is, out of the 100, let's say out of the 100% of vendors that you have, we always conservatively say 30% will accept this, and that's how we came up with a $10 to $12 million program that this can be for you. Easily, this could end up being a $10 million program, but like Jan said, it takes time to get to that level, but conservatively, easily could be that level of program. So this is something that was definitely analyzed and took, several months to put together, just so you can get a little bit of an idea about your vendors and who accepts Visa and doesn't. Not everybody's going to accept this, but the ones that do, why not make some revenue share off of them, since they're already paying for this anyways.
Thank you.
Ms. Lopez, may I ask a question?
Councilwoman Waldman, go ahead.
This is probably to Jan. I'm sure we pay our bills in a timely fashion, but if with this Visa card, do they have incentives? Do our vendors have incentives? So that maybe more revenue could we be seeing with the credit card because you'd be paying it immediately?
Prompt payment discounts.
Do we have any vendors?
We're going to start asking for prompt payment discounts.
Do we currently have vendors that?
We currently don't have any vendors who offer that, a discount program. I think that's something that Brian has intended to look into with our vendors.
I would think that they might be interested in that if it was just automatic and was done within the first 5 days of the month, and instead of having to wait for the process, which could be as much as 30 days.
Actually, Councilman, this is not going to change our contractual obligations with contractors. If we say we pay within 1 month, we will be paying within 1 month. We're not going to expedite the payments, otherwise we're going to be losing interest in by expediting the payment. However, instead, issuing a check, and they come pick up the check and go on deposit. It take a few days to be, cashed in their account. They will be receiving what do you call it, the electronic transfers, and that's where they realize the efficiency. And just maybe they save a few days, and it's in their bank.
I see. I was just trying to think of another way to sap a little bit more money.
Definitely something to look into, for sure.
Thank you.
Well, we had this conversation when we talked about what the procedure is now for issuing a check versus what it would be once people would start accepting credit card payments, and we discussed that the real incentive is in a faster payment. I mean, that was the whole thing with setting up this Visa credit account, is that it would be faster payment, easier, secure, rather than the long wait. But we don't have a policy as if you're getting paid by a Visa, it'll be 5 days, versus if you're getting paid by check, it's 30 days. But we discussed that setup.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Next items, item C, tab 8, and this is an additional service fee to James Arthur Smith Park.
I move it.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Thank you. And I have to tell you, when I first read this, I almost fell out of my chair, because I thought staff had clear instructions that we were not going to do additional service fee or additional anything, that we would not have change orders. As you can see, this additional $68,000 this engineer is now requiring as payments, going to bring this whole total up to $120,000. So that means that there was about a 50% increase in the scope of services. But after speaking to the city manager, I have to tell you that it is well understood. This project here is left over from the previous Parks and Recs department. This is something that was started, the engineer was asked to provide a drawing for scope of services. And as we were going along, more additional services were asked. And so this engineer, thinking that staff had already had permission from council to spend this additional money, went ahead and provided the services. What happens on the other end is the deadline for the grant. So in the meantime, what the city manager does is he gets this additional service that we are now indebted to this engineer for $68,845, and he tells the engineer that he's going to review it item by item to make sure that this is legitimate services that were provided. If in fact they were legitimate, then obviously we owe them this additional fee. And our city manager, through his personal contacts, through his professional contacts from his being a professional engineer, was able to negotiate with them, because not only do we have this invoice that we owe to them, but we also, in order to satisfy the grant deadline, needed some additional comments that needed to go back to them, and they would not sign off on it. They said, the city of Homestead owes us $68,845. You guys either pay, or we are not going to close off so that you guys can meet that grant requirement. Anyway, that was a very short version of what actually happened. If I left anything out that was important into justifying why we now are going to pay this engineer an additional $68,845, what is the total price of the project, Mr. Shahara?
Total, the original scope was I'm sorry. The original scope of services was $52,000, and we're adding $68,000 to the total of
120
something.
120,000. But the James Arthur Smith Park, that whole project is going to be
the project cost is about $2.8 million.
$2.8 million. Okay.
Yeah. And I just want to say that
Go ahead, Mr.
these are additional services. Even though this is not really the proper way to do business, because we cannot spend more than $25,000 without coming to council for approval. The prior director changed the scope of services dramatically. It used to be, and I can have Holly go into details, it used to be just really planting and just general park things being done there, like a Bassett Park. Now it's becoming an active park with for example, they added the pump station and bathrooms and all that stuff. So these are really legitimate expenses. Who will review the actual tasks and look at their fees. This engineering firm has an agreement with us also in continuing services, so it was based on the agreement for continuing services. So everything is legitimate. However, the expense was done ahead of time. And like the Councilwoman Noble said, I remember Julio coming to my office when I first became a city manager. He said, Mike, I want you to know that this project is standstill because B&A refused to do any more work because DERM is requesting additional comments to be addressed on the plans, and B&A, the engineer on record, said we are not going to do any more work because we've been asking the city for payment for so long and the city is not responding. Of course, I called the president. I used to work for him before coming to Homestead. And to my surprise, the person who called me back was an assistant county manager who used to be also the airport manager, if you recall his Banzan, his last name. And I can tell you, initially he was very nice, then we got into a heated discussion, but they actually did what I expected from a professional firm at their level, by practically taking a risk and say, okay, we're going to finish the plans and put $68,000 at risk. But in all fairness, I cannot just tell them I'm not going to pay you what the city owes to you, especially when it's a justifiable fee. And I also want to, I'm sorry to mix apples and oranges, I want you to know we are in the same situation with the Hamdi Damdi or Roscoe Warren Bar. The scope of services exceeded $200,000, and we are in discussion with the engineers. That was never came back to council for discussion. And we are in discussion with the engineers to justify that fee, and we're looking at the original scope of services versus what was revised. But I just want to give you a heads up, it's one of these projects.
And Mr. Shahada, one more thing that I did want to add too is, and this was not the way to do business, and also because when you just keep adding to the scope of services, you don't have any control to those additional services that you're requesting. You're kind of like just adding things on and adding things on. So you don't have the control of negotiating the total cost for this engineering firm to make these drawings. So this service was already provided. This engineering firm needs to be paid. I think that once it's finished, James Archer Smith Park is scheduled to be finished at the same time as the Senior Citizen Center, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Councilwoman?
Yes, Mayor Bell. And so I think that it's a worthwhile project. Unfortunately, this is one of those cleanup items that we're a year and 2 weeks now since being elected that we're still dealing with. Go ahead, Mayor Bell.
Thank you. And I know that not only do we have a cleanup project with this one, that we do have cleanup problems with the others as well, but I just want to say I really am looking forward to this park and looking forward to it. I'm really pleased about the water feature that they're going to have, and I know it's going to be beautiful for those in the older northwest part of town. There's a lot of children that are going to be utilizing this park, and so I'm very pleased about it, and no matter how this came about, I'm just pleased to see what's happening here, Councilwoman. I'm very pleased about it.
Thank you, Mayor Bell. Well, the discussion happened because I think earlier on we made it clear that we were not going to be approving these kind of, this isn't a change order, this is an additional service fee, but it's kind of like the same thing, to come back and to have a project that you estimated was going to be $50,000, now it's going to be additional $68,000. So to keep in theme with your whole transparency in government kind of deal, I think that we should be kept accountable for anything that we approve that is $68,000 beyond what we said we were going to spend. Absolutely. And so that, I think, was the whole purpose of having a discussion in the public, and perhaps at the council meeting to further explain so that this doesn't come up as, this council approved an additional 68 without really looking. And what I appreciate is that this city manager, Mr. Brea, even though this was something that needed to be completed, they took it upon themselves to be diligent, to look at it item by line item, to ensure that this was a legitimate service and an expense. And I think that that really, they could have just come to us and said, this guy just wants $68,000 here, approve it or not approve it. So I appreciate that part as well, and I think that it's something that should be highlighted and should be known in the public.
Thank you. I also think, though, that our new Parks Director, Robert Landon, also inherited some of this, too, so we want to commend him as well. Thank you.
Councilwoman Waldman?
Yes, Mike, can I just ask you a question?
Sure, please.
We're talking about it, cleanup. Was there nothing in the files, nothing to indicate, when you were Assistant City Manager, nothing to indicate that this was coming up? Nothing?
Personally, I had no knowledge of it.
Yeah, nor did I.
If Marlene had knowledge of it, I don't know who you, in the correspondence you had to justify to you that this fee was, I almost guarantee that Marlene knew something about it. I'm not saying this is bad expense or expense that was really like under the table. It's just, it's not done.
But we're not. But I don't want it to be insinuated that it was something that we're having to, that was covered up. I mean, it's something that nobody knew about. I mean, I didn't know anything about it, and I'm sure you didn't as well. But
exactly, you know, it did not come to. If this council knew about it, would have been approved. You know, because the process, if it's more than $25,000. It should have come to your attention for, you know, for the city manager to authorize it.
I just want to clarify that.
And you know, I just want to, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I want to just mention something here, and I don't want it to sound like an infomercial. You know, our attorneys are putting a workshop about this subject, you know, about change orders and construction projects, and I can tell you I am very proud to be invited as the keynote speaker on the you know, change orders, and I was the first one they called, so they didn't run out of resources before they called me. But I just want to say that it's like when you do something at home. It's if you don't know exactly what you want and you bring a tradesperson to your house, and they will make their scope of services. But you know, if you know exactly what you want from that person, you will tell them, this is what I wanted to give me an estimate for. And they will be, you know, you control costs. But if you just say, I have a leak in the house and I don't know what needs to be done, do whatever, they replace the roof for you.
Well, Mr. Shahada, if I can also add, this is leadership. I mean, if you have a staff, if you as the city manager, you have a staff, and the staff is negotiating on your behalf and on behalf of the council, and they're approving these things, thinking that this is the direction that council has given, then that's the level of responsibility. That's where the engineers come back. And you explained to me that big firms, they generally just, you know, look at the customer and say, okay, this is an additional service that you want, yes, and they go ahead and do it. Smaller firms want it in writing. Smaller firms say, no, this is a risk we're going to take. If this is not approved by the people who actually approve the payment, we want it in writing from this staff that this is going to be approved. So this is, again, if staff knows that the city manager expects there to be an accountability and that this council has says no way will you bring about a change order of this magnitude, then I think staff has that direction, has that leadership from all levels. So I think that that's where the miscommunication was. If staff was under the impression that they were a green light to spend whatever amount as long as the project was done without this kind of control of management of finances, then that came from the leadership.
That's exactly right. And by the way, I'd like also to take this opportunity to thank Sherry. She got involved with it early on with some other park-related projects before we turn it over to Hulu. So Sherry also had an opportunity to look at some stuff.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lobos. Public Safety Committee, user fees for services related to motor vehicle accidents, tab 9.
I move it.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Mr. Manager?
Mayor and Council, we ask your approval to move forward with this ordinance. It's going to go for 2 readings, of course. As you are aware, a few months ago we brought in front of you an agreement with a lady from Ohio. They do cost recovery, and again, it's one of these programs where our staff are looking around, and this came from Scott, the chief. Thank you very much. And this can be a very serious revenue generator. And I just want to make it very clear, even though the ordinance here does not specify it, and I wanted to be there, but after talking to the city attorney, David Wolfen, he had reasons why we're not including it. But it's going to be included in the agreement we are going to execute with the company, and it's going to be coming for the second reading. Normally, the taxpayers in the city of Homestead and the residents in the city of Homestead, you know, if they are tenants, you know, paying rent, they paying rent to the landlord is paying taxes, they're subsidizing the services for our police department. Our police department also spends very serious money annually on investigating accidents that are happening within our city limits from people who are not city residents. And this company, they have this niche in the market, and they're doing it all over the United States. We have just provide them with information about the accidents, and they will go after the insurance company. And we told them when they came to talk to us, if the taxpayers and the residents of the city of Homestead are not exempt, we're not going to even talk about it. They will be exempt. So it's just people who are from outside really practically taxing our services, and they're not paying for it. Our residents and taxpayers are paying for it. So this is a way to recover, and this company recover their fees separate from the fees they bring to the city of Homestead. The number is going to be, it's my understanding, a large number, but a little cut delivered, so it doesn't have any blank cut for it.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager, Mayor and Council. I spoke as recently as today with the president of the company. The company's been in existence since 1999. We have investigated annually approximately 5,000 motor vehicle crashes in the city of Homestead, which is a very high number within our city. In discussions with her, in a conservative mode, she estimated that we would hopefully recover anywhere in the area of $400,000 to $500,000 annually for the investigation of these accidents. And these accidents are mainly civil infractions, the non-criminal type, and our basic services actually cover the criminal investigation, criminal protection for our citizens of Homestead. So, like the city manager had explained to you, it's not going to be any out-of-pocket cost for the taxpayers. This is something that's covered through the insurance companies. A little over half of the insurance companies do provide that coverage and reimburse for those costs. The money that the company itself recovers is, obviously a portion, approximately $200 for each accident, is entitled to the city of Homestead, and their fees for recovering that is included in the cost submitted to the insurance company. If our taxpayers, initially it is submitted to their insurance company. If it's rejected, we do not personally go for collection from any of our taxpayers within the city of Homestead, because obviously they pay their taxes and the police protection is included in that. What we basically do is go after the insurance companies to try to recover it, because the insurance companies basically cover fire costs, towing costs, repair costs, and so forth. And this is one of the costs that's incurred under automobile insurance protection. And it's mainly for the at-fault driver that is the person that we go after. And the only time that if the insurance company does not reimburse the city for it, when we go after the individual themselves, is if they are not in fact a taxpayer of the city of Homestead.
Thank you very much. You've answered my questions in advance. Vice Mayor.
I like the idea of that. My only question is under Section 2, I believe it's Section 2, letter F, the city manager or his designee will hear the appeals. And I don't know with the staff that we have, are we going to have to add somebody in to handle this? Because if 5,000 accidents a year is 18 accidents a day, with people, possibly coming in to appeal, or that, not saying that all of them will. And then how do we get somebody? We can't designate that out to 3 or 4 people, because we have to have one person that handles that and uses the same criteria and same thought process, I think. So I'm just wondering who and how are we going to handle that in the manager's office?
If I could answer that. Our accident investigations, all of the reports generated by the police department are reviewed by one of our investigators in the accident investigation unit. It's a very small time frame that those reports are taken to be reviewed and would have to be forwarded to the company for collection purposes. The company itself handles the actual collection and so forth, and would determine that. It really would be a minimal amount of time each day that our investigator would just sift out who are taxpayers.
Actually, it wouldn't read as the city manager's, or it would become his designee would be somebody from the traffic bureau?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's why we like that word, designee.
Just wondering, making sure that it's going to be covered.
Normally, we have a individual actually is not in the supervisory rank, but actually leads our investigative unit, and he goes through the reports daily to sift out the hit and runs, the different investigations, to grid chart where accidents are occurring and so forth. So this additional duty would not take very much time at all for him to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other comments or questions?
I have a question.
Councilmember Cormick.
What would these funds be? What would it be used for?
What the money would be used for?
Yeah, like what, would it go to the general fund, or what part would it go
It's
to?
a general fund revenue, because the general fund is paying for this expense, so it comes like a general fund revenue.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Do we have to send out notice to the insurance companies ahead of time or anything like that? Or?
There is no requirement for that, no, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes carry. Thank you very much. Any business for the board?
Just no. Thank you.
Councilwoman Lopez?
Happy holidays.
Just happy Thanksgiving to everyone present.
Councilwoman McCormick?
Saying happy Thanksgiving and happy birthday to you tomorrow.
To you?
Yeah.
Happy birthday to John Burgess as well.
We have the October birthdays now. We have the November.
Friday.
Yes, Mr. Manager?
Not any wiser, just...
Mayor, council members, I will not be able to see before December 5th, at least in a public meeting. Invitations went out to 2,000 people for 1,500 people for the kickoff, practically right before the first annual 5K walk run. So no excuse, if whether you walk or run, you have to come. And this is an event where we're going to hopefully be raising funds for the SOS. You all know how productive that group is. Unfortunately, the demands on their services are larger what they can get in grants, and we think every little thing helps. So we are, this is the first time we are doing something like this, and I know I have your support even without asking for it, but we want you to be there on the 5th. It's going to be at the racetrack championship club, and hopefully we're going to find lots of sponsors. The actual event is going to take place on February 7th, and this is the logo we have for that event. It's called Heart and Souls like the shoe sole. And really, I can't say enough about this organization. People, I don't know if people listen to this on the internet, directors, Kevin, people in the community, please, we need all the help we can get to promote this event. The City of Homestead always participated in events up north for good causes, and it's time for people to work with us and participate with us. In addition to you coming there, I ask you for your support by calling your contacts. Trust me, a call from you is worth 100 calls from me to the same individual. So please work the phones to invite people to come to the event or sponsor a team. So with this, I say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Well, good. By February, my foot should be healed back up, so I can I would be participating in the walk part, not the run part. Any other comments? Thank you very much. With no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.